So would you fly into a hurricane? Would you do that? Debate that I have to answer between now and 7 p.m.
Well, you're flying over the hurricane, technically.
Yeah. Technically, I
You're
am
not going directly in.
But I keep refreshing
There we
everything
are.
today. I'm refreshing everything today, trying to.
We're live. The people can hear us.
I think so.
Oh Jesus! All right.
But would you fly? Would you fly into a hurricane?
Welcome everybody to the Sports Hub Underground. Guess what, folks? We're live. We're live on Twitter. What the hell are we doing, Ty?
Not for long. They're gonna kick us off.
Live from the moon.
I know.
It's hard to explain because nobody's seen this studio before. Studio Q.
Yeah.
I call it the Sports Hub Psych Ward because you can see padded walls, no windows, no connection to the outside world. The hurricane could be going on right out this room for all I know.
I wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know. But yeah, like when we don't have this big podcast light on, there's like a yellowish beige look to the room. Now it's like a bright white look to it. It's weird.
You ever seen the
album? Me off.
You ever seen the album cover for Quiet Riot? The guys wearing the mask. It's like that. It's like that kind of room. It's what it looks like.
I may or may not have seen that. I'm not sure.
Metal Health, I think, might be the album. I can't remember.
Metal Health.
Yeah. They had Come On, Feel the Noise. They had Metal Health, which they play at Bruins games, which I love, by the way. I love when they do that. Shout out Senator John, best DJ in the business.
Yes. Big fan.
Dude, he's always playing such good deep cuts. Like, I know you always tweet about it when he plays like My Bloody Valentine. That's that band, right? Or
he plays Only Shallow by My Bloody Valentine.
I always get them in Bullet for My Valentine.
No.
That's way different band.
He plays 100 Gex, the newer artist. I am a big fan of. It's just a wild band.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, someone else is a fan of theirs. Cool.
Well, I like when they opened for Deftones and no one liked it. Like nobody who was going to Deftones wanted to hear that.
That's an odd booking choice.
But yeah, as
They're
we
not
are
close to the Deftones.
As we are recording this, it is 1:36 p.m. It's live
Eastern Standard Time.
I'm getting on a flight to go to Sunrise in about 6 hours. I don't know if I should be doing that.
Yeah, that seems quite dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
if Doc tells you you're not getting on that plane, then I would probably listen to her.
I can get down.
I wouldn't pull a Rain Man if I Qantas never crashed.
Yeah,
Qantas never crashed.
I can get down there. Getting home is what I don't know if we can pull it off. I have no idea. I have no idea if we can pull it off.
That is the tough part. I feel like tonight you could make it down there.
Yeah.
But then what the hell happens in Southern Florida?
Yeah.
While you're down there.
I'm just staying at a high school. It's like Friday. The world is just going on and I'm just stuck there.
But I mean, I'd be worried about your safety. I don't know if you'd even be able to sit somewhere safely. And
if I was stuck
do
in
your
an airport,
job, exist down there.
If I were stuck in an airport, I would just have to sit in the airport chair basically and just do that.
What would be your go-to if you were stuck in an airport food court situation?
Well, I would go to the hangar that they hung out in the terminal, and I would just reinvent that life.
What the Tom Hanks?
Croatia. That's where he was from, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. That'd be fun. Well, all right. If you had to pick, what's the number one place that you don't want to be stuck in? You got to pick a mall, an airport. I mean, a mall kind of is. Well, an airport's kind of has a mall. But what would be your ideal place to be stuck in? What would it be?
Mall's cheaper than an airport. If I had to pick one of those two, mall or airport,
yeah,
you got to go mall.
Yeah,
mall has a food court.
That's right.
And you can go Build-A-Bear. Mm-hmm. And you can go loot Macy's.
That's right. You could do that.
And then you could hit up the Orange Julius. You could have yourself a day.
You could have a day.
Go to Newbury Comics, grab a couple shirts, a couple posters.
Yeah, so sound off on my mentions. Should I get on this plane? Should I get on this plane and go down to Sunrise, Florida?
I'm with Doc on this one, Ty.
Cover game 1 of the regular season.
You don't need to. We're used to covering road games from home. I think we need to just take care of ourselves.
I should have known. The flight was I booked this flight a month and a half ago now, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna be there for that. That's cool. Now and people kept being like, "You're going down there? You're going down?" I'm like, "Yeah, flight was cheap. I should have known. I should have known someone was gonna screw it up." So I have no idea.
There's always a catch.
So I got a few.
I didn't tell you. The roof's gonna fly off your plane while you're down there.
I sure hope
be in a 600 mile an hour nosedive.
I sure hope not.
No, I don't. But I don't think so. The airline might make the decision for you.
That's what I thought would happen.
Postpone, whatever. The NHL might make the decision. They might postpone the game.
I really hope. So my nightmare scenario here is that I get on the plane, we get down there, we land, and then I turn my phone off airplane mode, and then I get like 7 alerts from the NHL being like, the game has been postponed. That'd be my nightmare. And I'm not cool. Now I'm just trying to get out of Dodge while everyone else is also trying to get out of Dodge.
You get all these texts like, I just heard what happened. Tell me you're okay. I hope you're okay.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know if I am. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a hard debate because there is like that element of, I think if the game goes on a schedule, I would love to be at that game. I'd love to see how they do it. Then there's like you leave that game at 9:30 p.m. in Sunrise, Florida, get outside and it's chaos, right? You got 50-mile-an-hour winds, you have flooding going on, like, and I don't know if that's going to be the case in Sunrise and Fort Lauderdale area. I think that's going to happen on Wednesday, but flying out Wednesday 7 a.m. Do I love my odds of that plane actually taking off?
We now go live to tell you you're hanging off a pole. Like, all right, guys, I'm just going to update you on the Bruins game.
Yeah, Nikita Zadorov was pretty good. Wow, and I just fly away.
It cuts back to us like, I think he's really hurt. I'm not sure it was worth sending him down there for an ice hockey game.
Well, here we are.
Prayers to everyone in Florida. It sounds like it's going to get really bad.
Yeah,
I don't want to joke about natural disasters.
No, I know.
It's going to be a Category 5 hurricane
for me.
I think people know what we're about.
Yeah. But here we are. We are about 24 hours, a little bit more away from the start of the season, finally beginning for the Boston Bruins.
Fine.
Jeremy Swayman, finally, that is over.
Speaking of live, like I wish we had this all set up in time for that, because I was hoping, like, the Swayman news breaks, we could do the trial balloon of the Sports Hub Underground live on Twitter.
Yeah.
When that happens, but of course it happens right when I'm driving down to Gillette to watch that wonderful football game yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like getting that text. Whenever you get
you're watching literally anything else on television.
Yes.
Than that.
Oh yeah, no, I was. You get that text. Hey, heads up, something's happening. What's going on here? And then Elliot had it, and then then the next thing you know, boom, here we are. It's re-signed. So, $8.25 million per.
I want to say one of us predicted that exact number.
Yeah.
Not that it was crazy to predict it, but it's like
remember.
The report was Swayman wants 8.5. Bruins offered 8. Let's meet in the middle.
I overshot it. I had 8.33. I had 6 years, 50 million. Yeah. So 8.33. So I was off by a couple years. I overshot the AAV.
I think you said 6 years, 8.333.
Yeah, because 50 million. 50 million divided by 6.
Shoddy math there.
Yeah. I just overshot it, but ultimately they get their guy. They get him at the number that I think it might seem high now, but as time progresses here, like, listen, the cap went up to 88 million this past year. Next year, it's going to be up to 92 million. That's based off current projections. The year after that, it's probably going to go up even higher. I mean, we're looking at $100 million cap in probably 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years out, depending on how high they want to keep escalating it. But basically, here's what we got to know is that, and we've talked about this before, but if you're new to the show, if you're new to whoever, like, Vegas prints money. Seattle has been printing money. They've generated so much hockey-related revenue for these guys. They're out of the COVID debt they had, and so
Seattle's printing money. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, no, it's Seattle's market's been huge,
popular out there. That's cool.
Yeah, it's been great for them.
Good to
know. Both those teams have been, my understanding is, top 7 in generating revenue the last few years. So,
I would have guessed that with Vegas. Cup champions, really good team out of the gate.
Yeah, so internally they're pleased with where the league is trending from a money standpoint. You also have the Turner deal, you have the ESPN deal, so like they're in a good place. They feel in terms of viability, money. It's going to keep going up, barring something horrible that you can't project, you can't predict. And so 8.25 million, it's a lot now, but if Swayman continues to play the way he's played, he was an all-star last year, he was a great playoff goaltender a year ago, then that's going to be that's going to be a bargain by year 3 or 4. And that's like, so right now you're looking to go, it's a little high right now, but if he projects the way he projects, it's going to be a totally fine, manageable contract for this team moving forward.
Yeah. Like, so is he's still the 6th highest paid goalie, even going up to 0.25 over 8?
So he's tied with Sorokin for it's technically speaking, it's the 5th highest, tie for the 5th highest. But he's going
to drop down.
But if you take Carey Price out of it, which I do, because he's not active, it's tied for the 4th highest active. You have Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, oh my God, who am I missing here?
Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, it's
Hellebuck,
not Shesterkin.
Hellebuck then tied Sorokin and Swayman now. So they're tied for fourth among active goaltenders. So
but he's going to drop down. He's going to go down the list because Shesterkin's probably going to get more.
Yep.
Oettinger's probably going to get a little more.
I would put him around the same. I'd put him around the same. It all depends what he does. But
Oettinger could be like, look at this. I want a little more than him. Could he make a case?
He could. I think he is as good as Sorokin and Swayman. It might come down to what their run looks like. Like, do they go on a deep run or they take a step back? How does he factor in terms of like AAV or not AAV, but like, does he take a team friendlier deal, so to speak? But yeah, and then you have Saros as just below that. So like, yeah, like for a guy who's a top 5-ish goaltender, let's say out of the top 3, but is in that 4 to 7 range, $8 million is going to be the going rate for that. I would imagine. So yeah, that's the way it is. That's how it is. And when you have the playoff that he had a year ago and you have a 1-year deal and you trade Linus Ullmark, and they traded him because of the no trade that was going to alter on July 1. They had to do it at that point. But when you do all that, and we've talked this before, but like you say a year ago, okay, we're going to trade this guy, we're going to go to arbitration and we're going to sign him. And if he proves us wrong, then we're going to have to pay up. Like, what other option do you really have at that point? You kind of have to follow your own advice and pay up, and that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, my concern is the years more than the AAV, because I just think 8 years for any goalie is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how's that going to look? It might not be as much money in terms of the rankings of the AAV, like 5-6 years from now, but is he going to be the same guy when he's hitting 31, 32 years old? Like, I don't know. We might be looking at that contract at the end of it saying, can they unload this, or like, can they, figure something out there?
Well, a lot of times GMs, when they sign those kind of contracts, or they sign players those kind of contracts, they will often say, well, that's someone else's problem, most likely. That's not my problem. And so you have to pay a premium to try to win now. And we talked about this last week, Matt. With Swayman, they are, in my opinion, a division favorite. I think they are as good as their peers. Without Swayman, they were probably more third place in the Atlantic, wild card. If that guy makes that much of a difference for your team, especially in April and May, you got to pay him. You got to keep him. And I think that was the biggest thing. It's that, listen, do I love the idea of giving $66 million to a guy who has made 132 career starts? No, I don't love it. But when that guy is as good as he was in the playoffs a year ago, and you don't really have anyone else in the pipeline coming up, what are your other options? It's not Korpisalo. I'm sorry. Like, that Korpisalo was a guy that you acquired to be a charged up backup, like a really, really good backup, where you looked at him and you said, okay, not a guy we want starting 50 games, but if we can get him to start 27, 28, maybe 30, we have an elite backup. We have a backup that is going to give us a great start 60% of the time because we're managing him. We're not overloading him. We're not overly taxing him.
Goalie Bob's coaching him up.
Exactly.
Great defense in front of him.
And I think that's like, so if there's one complaint that I have with the reaction to the Swayman contract, it's, well, he's never been the number one. No, he was. He was in the playoffs. He was playing every other day. His performance didn't necessarily drop off major, in my opinion. I thought he was their best player in the Florida series. I think they lose in the first round if he's not net against Toronto. So he proved that in that regard. But also, people say, well, he's only played 40 games in a season. Okay. I don't want guys playing more than 55 anymore. Those days of the workhorse goalie, I think, are over.
I wanted to ask you about this. Like, how much does his workload go up? Because he's not going to be a guy that's going to start 70 games because nobody really does that anymore.
Right.
But like, he's got to play a little bit more. I think $8.25 million. 50
to 55, but not a game over 55. That's
I'm
firm on that.
You've looked at the stats. There's like a line of demarcation where guys drop off after 55, right?
Yeah. So I wrote about this earlier during the Swayman saga, where people were saying, well, he's never been number one. He's never been number one. There were, I believe, 4 guys last year that started over 55 games. I believe it was Bobrovsky. I know it was him. Saros, Hellebuck, and I want to say Stuart Skinner was the other. Mm-hmm. Hellebuck and Saros, who are more like Swayman in the sense that they are playing for a team that relies on them. Like they're going to rely on their goaltender. Swayman and Saros and Hellebuck fell off a freaking cliff after game 55. It was nuts. Like Saros was like, I think he was like 2-6 with like an 875. It's like, no.
It's the 100 pitches of hockey.
Exactly. So you don't want a guy going over 55 games played. If he hits it, that's because you need him to do that to get to the playoffs. So it's like at that point, it's like, all right, well, you got to do it.
It's
what's your other
option?
But
they just did it back. Were goalies more able to do it back in the day, or did we just not have the numbers and the insight?
I think
there's like rips dirt on it. Out there.
Yeah, I think there was less sports science involved than there is now.
Go have a cigarette. You'll be fine.
Go drink a Pepsi during intermission like half the guys would. No, but I think that's a big reason why. Like I always think about this, right? Like when we were growing up, like in the mid 2000s, early 2010s, the Flames had Mika Kiprusoff, and I was like, this guy's great.
Talk about a name from the past.
I'm like, this guy's great. But then he would start like 68 games a year and he'd get smoked in 5 games in round 1. You're like, all right, never mind then. Like, and it sucked.
Wasn't it the same thing with the Sharks guy, Nabokov?
Yeah.
Nabokov.
Yeah. I mean,
they dominate every year and then fizzle out.
Exactly. And so I think that there's more of a sports science emphasis now. And ultimately, if you're looking at this saying, well, he's making 8.25, you better play 60 games. Like, no, they're not paying him for games played. They're paying him for peak performance in the games that he does play. And so I think that's kind of where they're at. That's the only problem that I've had with like the tenor around that discussion has been, well, you better go out and earn it. It's like, I kind of think he did.
No duh.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to go out and earn his money.
And I just think that when it's just, I think that this is what you have to, like, sometimes you have to pay for a premium. You have to pay a premium. And I think that given what he did in the playoffs a year ago, going bridge would have been stupid because it would have gotten closer to UFA and you would have walked away probably. And you don't have anyone else coming up. You don't have anyone else around him. And I like Korpisalo, but I like him again in that charged up role.
In this situation.
Did you watch the game in Quebec City? Korpisalo was great in the beginning, but then the Bruins weren't really pushing at the other end, and the chances were going up. And then he kind of he didn't break down, but he gave up 3 goals on like 4 shots. And it was like, oh, that's an example of what you can't have because that deflates you. Not to say that
balloon popped.
Exactly. And so I think that you have to manage that guy. Like you have to manage any great goalie 2. Or your goalie 2A, whatever term you want to use. But like you got to manage those guys properly. And so that's where I think that Korpisalo's value is, not starting 55 games for your team. So I like what they did.
Yeah, were people out there saying they wanted Korpisalo to just start?
I think there were people. Okay, so when Neely made his comments, people flipped. People were like, yeah, like screw Swayman. We're just gonna make it work with Goldie Bob and whoever they bring in. It's like, no, please don't do that. It's similar to like the offensive line with the Patriots. We're like, we got Skarnecki, you can do anything. It's like, no, not totally true.
Yeah, no.
You got to have talent. You got to have like the natural demeanor and like the resume. You can't just put anybody back there and say, now you're an ace.
Diminishing returns.
Yes.
If you start to play him too much. Mm-hmm. Tough matchups, that whole thing. Is this a win for Cam Neely? It feels like the Bruins really stood their ground at that press conference, and they announced Korpisalo as the opening night start. They basically said, it's in your hands now, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We're going forward with Corpy.
Yeah.
As the number 1 goalie. You want your new deal, you got to come to us, and you got to come off that number you're telling us.
Yeah.
And so like I get that the Bruins sort of gave in a little bit, but like are people going to lose their minds over an extra 250,000? Like I feel like Cam Neely,
but they will.
I feel like Cam Neely made the deal happen with that comment. That really set it in motion.
Yeah, I think there was that, and I think there was sort of the understanding of that this team wasn't going to bankrupt itself or have to make an additional move that would hurt them just to get him signed, right? Like you look at sort of where their cap space is, and after signing Swayman, they have, and all depends on the roster projection, how you do it here, but like they have enough space left over where they're not going to have to put somebody on LTIR to make a call up, like they're going to, like they'll be moving pieces, of course, but like they're not so tight against it that they're going to have to play one night with 16 skaters instead of a full lineup, like, which I think was a big thing for them. Having gone through the LTIR pool a year ago, or 2 years ago rather, to make a super loaded team. And then last year paying that bill at $4.5 million in overages and really kind of being hamstrung with what you could and couldn't do. Like they were sending Johnny Beecher down and Mason Lowride down because they could. And because they weren't making league minimum. They were making $850 and $925. And it's like, we really need the cheap guys. We like that $11,000 we're going to bank in cap space today is worth it for us. Like they're not going to have to do that as strongly as they would, if Swayman was making every cent of their available cap space. So I think that was a big factor for them in re-signing him. As far as Neely's thing, so what I had heard early in talks, and again, sometimes people just lie to you, so you never know. But I had heard they weren't going to go 8 years. That they didn't want to go 8 years, and they were pretty adamant 4, 5, or 6, like somewhere around there. And so I felt that they finally went 8, and they were still told no. And that's when Neely was like, "Are we going to get a deal done, or are we going to keep moving the goalposts? Like, what are we doing here?" So I think that was a big thing that led to that comment personally. That's what, if I were reading it based on the information that we had leading up to that point, it's that he got a little pissy that they finally went 8 years and they were told, nah, that's not high enough yet. It's like, what are we doing then?
Yeah.
What are we doing then?
Yeah. But I'm saying like the fact that once he made that comment, that really sort of set it off. Where it's like, all right. Take it easy. Calm down.
I don't know if you saw
we'll figure it out.
Did you see the Frank Sarabelli story that he wrote about how like there really was no financial reason that benefited either side to let this go into the regular season, where Swayman would lose money if it went into the regular season, and the cap hit would go up for the Bruins. Like if he signed let's say he signed for 8, the cap hit would be higher than 8. So it really made no sense for the sides to let this drag on into the regular season. So like I think that may have played a factor as well. But the Bruins didn't want to begin the year without their number one goaltender. Matt, we've talked about this before too. They have built a team that should be a great team, but it's built around having that great goaltender. When you go out and sign Zadorov, you go out and sign Lindholm, you make, in my opinion, the deepest, biggest defense in hockey.
Yeah.
I would say maybe Colorado's close, in terms of like what defensive units do I like better. I would put Colorado up there. I'd put the Rangers because I just like their versatility, but they don't have like the heft on that back end that the Bruins do right now.
You're just talking about the best, not the biggest.
Right. Yeah, the best. But they're a top 5 unit, I would say, and I think they might be top 3.
They gotta be
in terms of what they can do overall. And so you don't build that and then say, okay, and we want to have 2 question marks in goals. Like, no, you want to have your ace. You want to have your number one.
That last line of defense.
You built that team to that is your strength. Your strength is in your own zone. And if you have a wild card back there, be it Korpisalo on the rebound, from a bad year in Ottawa, or a Brendan Bussey or Jiri Patera, whoever it is, like that makes it harder. And so I think that this is now they're complete. They're a complete product now. And now it's about going out and, proving that they are a Stanley Cup contender, like the front office believes that they are.
Folks, we're live on Twitter. Shout out to our Twitter listeners, viewers. There's a decent amount of them.
Nice.
I don't want to say the number. I'm not sure they should be privy to that, but very excited to have people tuning in live.
The number is 7.
Yeah, I don't want to say it because it's 4 people.
It's us.
It's you, me, and Louth.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to mention the Frank Saravelli. Did you see today? He posted like 32 predictions.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. I know.
Is he crazy?
No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's so that his heart was in the right place.
Exactly. No, that's the thing. It wasn't
so
malicious.
I don't like to go public with my opinions on it because people just get mad and I just don't want to deal with it. But it's like, don't say anything about someone that just died unless it was a loving tribute, paying respects, nothing weird.
Right.
That's just weird.
Yeah, I know.
I remember like Dave Richard, who does fantasy football stuff. He goes on Toucher and Hardy.
Yeah.
When Demarius Thomas died, he's like, you're in our lineups forever, Demarius. And he posted a lineup with Demarius Thomas, and it's like,
that's weird.
Dave, stop being weird.
Because he changed that out at like 12:59.
Yeah.
He's not going to start a 0-pointer.
Yeah, I don't think he left him.
It's not. It's bad form. It's bad business. Yeah, I don't know. I know Frank a little bit. Heart was in the right place. Yeah, so I'm not gonna dump on him for that. It's just
I'm not dumping on him. I think it's funny, honestly.
I
understand.
I understand the idea behind it. So I can't.
Great idea. Absolutely.
But we all
piss
do that.
poor execution.
We all do that.
We don't all do that.
I mean, we all do something that you've never made a joke or a reference or something that like didn't land right.
Oh no, I made plenty of those.
Yeah, so that's what I think it was. I'm not saying it was a joke, but like a reference that didn't land all the way.
Right. No, I'm not saying get the guy in trouble. I just thought that was an interesting.
It was unusual.
Interesting choice of words and turn of phrase there.
Yeah. But you know, again, so here's my example of that. The Bruins went out one year and they acquired another former Ottawa Senator. And that was like a staple of Peter Chiarelli as like a GM. And I wrote a column about it. I forget what website I was working for at the time, but I wrote a column about it, and it wasn't here. It was somewhere else. I wrote a column basically being like, why are they doing this? This is stupid. Like, this guy's cooked. Don't bring him in. And I said, who are we going to bring in next? And I named a random Ottawa Senator who I didn't know had passed away. I didn't know. And so it was up for like 20 minutes, and I got like a DM from somebody be like, hey, I don't know if you know, but that guy actually passed away. And I was like, oh my God. But I like raced to like get rid of it. So
it happens.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand it from that standpoint.
But you know, I think I wrote an article once talking about like the Patriots' biggest draft bust, and I just based on games played, and I mentioned I forget the guy's name, but he passed away before he could play. And so I didn't really do my research on that one.
Yeah.
The internet was a little forgiving on that. I was like, I don't think you realize this.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us. It's like, oh, oops, that was ill-advised.
We all step in it.
It happens.
If you live long enough, you'll do something wrong enough. Shout out Drug Church. Anyways, moving beyond Jeremy Swayman, though.
Yes. This is supposed to be our Bruins season preview episode.
And
we weren't sure we were going to have the Swayman stuff to talk about.
I know. And
now we got the rest of the team to talk about.
The rest of the team, we kind of alluded to this. I love their defense. I think it's a great defense. I think you look at that team they had in 22-23. That was a great team. This defense is better than the one they had in 22-23. It's got more looks they can throw at you. It's bigger. I think it's just like they are so much more, adaptable in terms of whoever they're playing that night, where they can switch certain guys around, and it's like, whoa, this is a good look. Like,
right.
You can stymie this team, or you can match, you can counteract. Like, so that's why I like this defense this year. But obviously Zadorov's a big addition. Based on practice today, it looks like he's going to begin on the third pairing rather.
Yeah.
Opposite Andrew Peeke.
It's different pairings than what we saw at the beginning of camp, which I thought the pairings were interesting at the beginning of camp, but it feels like this seems like a better way to go. That just from Fleur Zawa, Lindholm, McAvoy, Lowry, Carlo, Zadorov, Peeke. And so Zadorov, McAvoy, it was interesting for a while, but I think they tried it in that preseason game. Probably didn't turn out the way they'd hoped. I think, if they want to activate each other offensively, Lindholm might be the choice there. Like, you've talked for a while about Lindholm being activated offensively. So there's that. Lowry, Carlo, they complement each other pretty well, I would say.
Yeah,
Carlo can complement Lowry's ability to get moving offensively, protect him in the D zone. But yeah, Zadorov, Peeke is like, the size, the way they could use their bodies to their advantage. And what do you think?
And I think it comes back sort of to, if you watched Zadorov and Peeke against the Flyers in the preseason, you saw a Nikita Zadorov that felt like he was sort of emboldened to make offensive-minded decisions.
Yeah.
Which I think with McAvoy, it's more like, do I go or you go? How are we doing this right now? What you want me to say? You go? And so I think that if you put Zadorov with Peeke, you're saying to Zadorov, you are the better offensive weapon out of the two of you. It's not a knock on Peeke, but Peeke himself says he's a hitter and a shot blocker. He's not an offensive guy. And you're saying to him effectively, go out and make some plays happen. And you saw that in the Philly game. He makes that great read along the boards, activates down low, sends it to Brazeau, boom, goal.
Yeah, that was great.
And then there are other plays in that game where he's carrying the puck in the O-zone, and he's basically just going for a stroll along the attacking blue, and the Flyers are trying to get to him. He's just knocking them off, and he's keeping possession. It's like, great. That's what you want out of him. That shift, I remember that shift was it was in the third period, and they were just wearing them down. And that was like, that felt like, oh, wow, that is his value right there. He's got a good shot. He's gotten better. That Quebec City game, he makes a great pass to hit Patrick Brown for what was their only goal in that game. So I think that offensively, to let him drive his own pairing, I think that's a great pairing. And the other part of it too, Matt, is that the Bruins don't look at their third pairing and go, they're going to play 12 minutes. Like, no, they look at all three of their pairings and go, each guy's going to play 17, 18 minutes.
Yeah, it can be pretty even.
So I like it in that regard. What do you think about the Lohrei Carlo pairing and what that can do?
See, I really liked Lohrei and Peak when those guys were together, and I liked the way they played in the defensive zone. They both, used their size to knock guys off the puck and get the puck moving the other way. So that part I really liked. But I think Carlo, with how dependable he can be in the defensive zone, that can really, you talked about Zadorov being freed up a little bit. Maybe that could free up Lohrei to get sort of moving the other way and make plays, joining the rush, leading the rush, and things like that. And so, like I said, like they complement each other well. I think the other pairings are, a little more versatile, so to speak. But like I think these are two different types of defensemen that really fit together well.
Yeah. Breaking news here.
What's going on?
Nothing.
Ty's on his phone.
Jeez, that's not how you say that, Ty. Vancouver has claimed Patera back from.
They've claimed Pat Patterson back. From
I know. It auto corrected that. Brandon Bussi though has cleared.
We're in a continental
waiver, so he's down back in Providence. The bus is staying with the Bruins, so that's a good backup you have down in Providence. But Patera is going back to the Canucks. Kind of saw that one coming. Their goaltending situation's weird with Thatcher Demko. So
wait, did they claim Patera from Vancouver?
Yes.
And now Vancouver's reclaimed? Like,
yes.
Get that back.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, no.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
It's like Yankee swap. It's Czech swap here. And Lohrei is the guy to watch here, though. Like, Lohrei is the guy to watch because he's so dynamic. And you were seeing him make plays during the playoffs that a 23 or 22-year-old, with 1 year of pro experience shouldn't have been making. Like, he was just like, he had such great confidence making puck plays, making great decisions to spark the offense, knowing that their offense was limited, right? And I think to your point, putting him with Carlo is great because when did the Bruins get their best years out of Torrey Krug? When he was with Brandon Carlo. That was kind of like their pairing where it's like, Krug, you can do what you want because you got this guy behind you and he's gonna provide support for you.
I thought Grzelcyk was good with Carlo too.
Yeah.
I thought when they put Grzelcyk with a guy that can move the puck, get and skates well and moves the puck up the ice, I feel like it works.
Yeah, and so I just look at that second pairing and like what I want to know is like, who are they out there with the most? Are they out there with Lindholm, Pastrnak, Zacha, or are they out there with Coyle, Marchand, and Geeky? Like what is their role? Because that's going to play into a factor is how they're utilized. Because I think if you have McAvoy and Lindholm together, okay, well, you can put those guys in all three zones. You're not really worried about that. I think with Lohrei, you want to manage him a little bit because you realize what an offensive weapon he is. And you want to put him in situations to succeed offensively.
Secondly, I think the offensive zone starts will be a high percentage for Lohrei this year.
Yes. That seems right. And that's when they had the Bergeron line clicking, they would put Carlo and Krug out there with them most of the time. So how they deploy this defense is going to be really interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching. There's going to be a lot of...
We've already seen that.
Yeah. And I like that. So
no, I love it. And just to move on to the top pairing, I don't have to say much about that because we've seen them play before. They've been here a few years. But we've talked a lot about Lindholm and McAvoy as when they put those guys together, it's a little top heavy, where it's like they don't have much depth beyond those guys. Now they got the depth. Now they got like these other two pairings are pretty strong on paper anyway. And so like now we can put Lindholm and McAvoy together. Now we can have what you've called it like a supercharged top pairing.
Yeah.
High end guys like right at the top of the lineup, like, bodes well for him, I think.
And the other part of it too, like one that we haven't seen yet would be Zadorov and Carlo. Like you can put a 6'6" guy and a 6'5" guy together and just cut the zone in half essentially, so you might see that out there. The big question that I have is, okay, so what do they do with their defenseman on the power play? McAvoy's running power play 1 right now. Lohrei's running power play 2. does that flip at some point? That's not another thing to watch with this defense, because I think that top unit has typically done best
with a lefty.
With a lefty. I've long been a believer in that. That's been my feeling on it.
Just give McAvoy a lefty stick.
Exactly. Try that. Just try that now. Who cares? You know, I'm for it. But that's going to be something to watch here. Is if the power. So here's something for you, Matt. Where do you think the Bruins power play ranked from October through January last year?
I looked it up. They were low. It was the bottom 10.
No, so they were top 5.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I got it backward. Yeah,
yes,
no, they were high up early in the year.
And the final 3 months, they were
dropped off.
They were the 5th worst. So they were bottom 5, second half of the year, top 5, first half of the year.
The hell happened?
If they can find a balance there, that will alleviate some of the issues we're talking about with their scoring woes, and worried that they're not going to score enough goals, worried that they're not going to produce enough offensively. If they can get rid of those high highs and those low lows and just kind of have more of a, and listen, power plays are going to go through slumps. It's going to happen. But if they can not let it fester into a bottom 5 grouping or a top 5 grouping and just be steady the whole way or close to it, that's going to alleviate a lot of their problems. But I think it begins on who is quarterbacking those units, right? And I'm curious if and when we see Lowry or even Lindholm maybe move up to that top unit if they sputter out of the gate, you know, this season.
Right, and if anyone's willing to do that, it's Montgomery to try different things with the lineup.
That's the one thing that he's been kind of like, he's been almost stubbornly committed to.
The power play. And having Pastrnak, McAvoy, and Marchand out there as a trio. Like, that's been the one thing that he changes everything. But power play wise, he's left that grouping together a lot. The logic might be it's our 3 best players.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like,
and that's fair.
Get our best 3 guys out there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But there were analytics last year that backed up the idea that maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we wanted to get a look at last year. It would have been Lindholm or Lowry out there. Would Lowry
and McAvoy be crazy? Because it's like, I know you like to do the 1 defenseman, 4 forwards, but those guys both play like forwards. They're both dynamic offensively.
I wouldn't, but that's just me. Just given how they line it up, their formation, and kind of where you want to slot everybody. I don't know if you could put Lowry. Yeah, I don't see that. I just don't see like how like where would you put the other guy? Like what? Like
I didn't think this through, Ty.
No,
I don't have an answer for you.
No. It's just they love having, you have sort of the deceptive play of Marchand on one half wall, and then you have like just that one-time bomb that Pastrnak can deliver. It's kind of like you got guys spinning at all times, right? And so, but I think
whereas like you have 2 guys you know are going to be at the point, like you don't.
Yeah, and you can
remove that deception.
Yeah, and are their roles established enough where they know what they're going to do, or are they going to flub it and now it's a shorthanded breakaway going the other way? Flubber.
Great film.
I saw it in theaters. Love that movie. Saw it in theaters last week. No, I'm just kidding.
Coach Corn.
They do like playing those kind of movies. No, but so their defense can be good. I think we can agree with that. And I do love bringing in Jay Leach, who I thought worked wonders with Seattle's defense. That you look at it and you're like, it's not that impressive. And then you kind of see what he did with it. And you're like, oh, okay, he made everyone better. Like that's great. And so I think to have him back, another set of eyes, another set of ears, and he's younger, can I think maybe relate to players a little bit more.
We've seen him around a lot at Warrior. He seems pretty hands-on.
Yeah, and so that's something to watch. So their defense can be good. And now we just move on to the forwards here, where it's a big bowl of who knows what's going to happen.
I know, and that's a good thing. Speaking of the power play, they're going to have Elias Lindholm at the bumper now, which I think should be an upgrade over what they've had.
Yeah.
And should make them not 28th in the league or whatever the hell they were.
Right.
At the second half of last year. So yeah, new first line, Zacha, Lindholm, Pastrnak. Those guys look really good together, in my opinion. Like right out of the gate, they looked good. And you know, Lindholm had to leave. He had his baby. I guess he was also dealing with some kind of minor injury.
He was playing so well for someone who was pregnant. It was unbelievable.
I know. It's crazy. He's in such good shape. That happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't realize you're expecting it. It's like,
what is
congratulations to Junior.
What is the benchmark for, like, what's a good season for Elias Lindholm look like?
Playing with Pastrnak, he's got to score 60 points.
60
You know,
points?
whether that's 30-30, 20-40, you got to get to that point. You got to have a high plus minus.
Yeah.
Got to be solid on the power play. You got to be a Selke candidate. He's got to be all those things.
I'm saying I'm going to say 67 points. 67. Okay. I know it's really specific, but I want to see a 20. I want to almost see a 20-50 season. I think. I mean, when you play with David Pastrnak, you should get
that's 70, Ty. I can't believe you have a job.
Close to that. Somewhere between 45 and 50 assists. I think I'd be happy. Like, you're gonna play with Pastrnak. They're gonna tell Zacha to shoot the puck. Like, those are your wingers. You should put up 50 assists. That's how I feel. And
yeah,
we look at Bergeron's final years, and if you're gonna say to him, well, he has Bergeron qualities. Okay, well, Bergeron was putting up 65 to 70 points, over his final few years playing with Marchand.
But he also scored a lot. This is why I asked Lindholm directly about like playing the bumper roll, and he directly mentioned like I'm going to use my shot a lot.
Yeah.
And so, but that could be a Bergeron type
of thing. Someone's got it on that power play. Right. Jesus.
But that's a Bergeron type of thing where like it wasn't bombs away when he was playing bumper, but he took a shot when he had the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so I'm expecting Elias Lindholm to score a little bit on the power, like score goals.
He should
on the power play.
He should, and I think that you sort of look at how their power play is set up. Like, somebody's going to feast, because if you got 5 guys and they got 4, and you have Pastrnak, Lindholm, and Marchand out there, like.
Right,
there's going to be some good looks for some guys.
They should open up space for each other.
Exactly.
Like I don't think they're going to start ignoring Pastrnak, but like Lindholm starts potting it from the bumper. You're going to have to pay attention to him.
Exactly. Yeah, and so Lindholm is the guy to watch here. Obviously, another thing I'm curious about with Lindholm, and again, you've been talking about, not you, but like they've been talking about how he's Bergeron-esque, right? He's like this. He can do things like he's a righty center like Bergeron. He's got a good two-way game like Bergeron.
It's been a little too much of a whiff of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't like
it. Zadorov. It's medium Z.
Yeah, no, I don't
Shout out
like
to Mike from Uber, friend of the program.
I don't like the Lindholm stuff, because Bergeron, like, if you think that anybody besides Sasha Barkov is going to be like Bergeron, you're going to be disappointed, because like those guys are like freakishly good two-way centermen. I'd throw Kopitar in that category as well, obviously. But like, that's too lofty of a guy to throw around. It's like, he's just like him. It's like, you don't realize how good that guy was, and that's okay.
Yeah,
but you can't just say that.
Don't have to say just like. That's
right.
A little too much.
Right. But if he does have some of those kind of qualities, do you give a run to Marchand, Lindholm, and Pastrnak? Or does that make you too top heavy?
And then you go to Zacha Coyle, like you just switch.
Well, you could do that, but you could also, and this is what we're talking about, their forwards here, and this is what makes them kind of interesting, but also a little bit of an unknown, is like you got a lot of guys who can play center and wing. And so like if you're playing Florida, for example, and they're throwing out that complexion at you that has Barkov, Bennett, and let's say Lundell takes that next step in his development, and he's a great third line center. Okay, let's say you have that. What stops you from going, okay, you know what? Let's go Lindholm, Coyle, and Zacha. Let's just try power on power. Let's go head to head here. And if you do that, like then you could bump Marchand up with Lindholm and Pastrnak. And so that's the biggest thing with this lineup. It's flexibility, versatility. We talked about it on the back end. Now we're talking about it up front. Like, they have a lot of different ways they can beat you now in terms of spreading out the wealth. But what is the trickle about effect that when you do those kind of things? And so I think Lindholm really allows them to kind of maximize their roster. But to your point, yeah, it's going to be Zacha, Lindholm, and Pastrnak out of the gate. And I think they're going to get a ton of ozone minutes. I really do.
Oh, yeah. No, the way on like what I've been most impressed about is the way they move the puck around in the offensive zone. Like the passing is like off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
This group. And so I feel like there are going to be a lot of plays where
someone's got to shoot, though.
Someone's got to be wide open.
Someone's got to shoot.
Someone's going to be wide open. The 300s at the Gardner.
Yeah. I mean, it is an issue, though. It is an issue.
That Philly game, it felt like they were going to go to jail if they shot the puck.
Yes. Yeah, no, there was that threat hanging over them. And I think that sort of you look at where they are roster complexion-wise, like last year they were saying we're not a shot volume team. Okay, well, you should be. If you have the puck as much as they're gonna,
yeah, well,
they should be a shot volume team. And but you saw signs of it in the preseason, and I don't want to make gigantic declarations based on the preseason, but the final 2 games, LA, I think they had 10 shots, 11 shots on goal. The game against Washington, they had 12 shots on goal. It's like, all right, got to pick it up a little bit here. Like, and so
yeah, you're not going to win a lot of games getting 12 shots.
But I want to see them shooting the puck. I want to see some more selfishness. I think that with great players, like you kind of have to convince them, hey, it's good that you're selfish because you're really good. You don't have to get everyone else involved. You're really good. Take the shot. We trust you taking the shot because you're so good.
I will if you let me.
Yes. So I think that's kind of what I look at for the Bruins. But I think they got some guys that are kind of question marks. Had a great year a year ago. Can they build on it? I'm looking at Trent Frederick. I'm looking at Morgan Geekie.
And Frederick's playing center to start the year.
Which I hate, but
that's part of your. I figured that was part of your thing where you want to put Zacha back at center.
Yeah, I think Frederick's a better winger than a center.
Does Frederick move up to that second left wing spot? That's where you're talking about the trickle effect.
Yeah, that would be in that case. Yeah, but like I think Frederick's a better winger than a center. He's a game-breaking wing when he's on.
Game-breaking.
I mean,
that's a little.
But I mean, like the third liner, like a third line guy can score almost 20 goals.
I think an excellent third line win.
That's what I mean. Like that's what I mean by that. It's like you can't throw all your eggs in one basket because you have him on the third line shooting 18% for the last 2 years. And it's like at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, that's just who he is. He gets to the good ice and he knows how to score. I don't want to mess with that. Keep it on the wing. I think if you throw a lot on his plate and you're saying now you're a center, he's like, okay, well, can I still play the same way I was playing when I was playing wing and scoring all those goals? Like, I think his value for this team is as a goal scorer. So if putting him at center and saying you have this on now as your responsibilities as well, I don't know if you're gonna get the same scoring punch out of him. That's why I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I get that. But right now he's projected based on the lines with Max Jones on the left, Justin Brezzo on the right. Max Jones, by the way, seems like a good dude. Seems like he likes it here.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's a former first round pick. Obviously he's never really panned out like a first rounder, but physical, plays with an edge, agitator, can draw penalties.
Big guy.
Yeah.
But he's big on this team.
Plays with really good pace, really good speed. There was a moment, I think it was in the LA game, where he just like lined somebody. No, it was the Caps game. He like lined Chychrun up, and Chychrun had a dodge with the last second. It was like, oh, that was contact. It would have been ugly.
Yeah.
But he's one of those kind of guys where, he can play with such energy and such pace that he can really keep guys on their toes. I just don't know if he's a third liner. Like, I think he's probably more of a fourth liner, but out of the gate, that's what they're going to go with. So their bottom six is a little bit like, if I were another team, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to play these guys.
Yeah,
this sucks.
This is part of the offense offseason goal was to get bigger and be harder on the forecheck, because they just they watched Florida do this to them over and over again. It's like, we should do that.
Yeah.
It's like, we're the Bruins. We got to do that.
Right.
And so they go out and they get Max Jones. Justin Brezzo is going to, probably again play a prominent role. He uses his size well. He could probably score. He has a sneaky amount of skill, Brezzo, for a guy his size.
Yeah.
He doesn't play with the pace that Max Jones does. So, and with Trent Frederick at center, I wonder how that line is sort of going to fit together. But I think it does live up to what they're going for, which is when they get down there in the offensive zone in the corners and they're going up against, maybe a smaller defensive core, like they could cause some problems.
Yeah, there's that. And there's also, like, I think with Brazeau, somebody told me that he dropped like 40 pounds, like to become the AHL guy to the guy signing an NHL contract. He dropped like a ton of weight.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mistake him for Nathan McKinnon exactly.
No,
but he looked a little more nimble out there in camp.
Yeah, he looks quicker. It looks quicker for sure. I mean, you have to be like, that's the biggest thing. Like when you talk to guys in the summer, or when they come back for camp or whatever, and like you say like, oh, what'd you focus on? Like getting quicker. That's not bullshit. That's like, you gotta be. This game is getting so fast that like, if you are not staying on top of your game skating wise, you're gonna get left behind. You're gonna get waved.
Just shut us down, by the way. You said a naughty word.
Nice. Can't wait. Sorry, I forgot that we're doing this.
Can't stop a nosebleed.
So I think that in that regard, he had to be faster, had to be quicker, and he got quicker. And so that's good. When it comes to like their fourth line, I love that you have Kastelik and you have Beecher. One guy's a great lefty faceoff option, and the guy's a great righty faceoff option. So
talk about playing with pace.
Yeah. But I think that's the biggest thing. Oh, sorry, Matt. That's the biggest thing from going from where they were last year, which again was a product of how the roster was constructed and how much cap space they didn't have, to this year, is that they didn't want to have to put themselves in a position where they went, this is a bad spot for us. This face-off is on this side. We don't have a guy who can win that draw. Okay, well, we're stuck in this zone, and we got these two defensemen out there. That's not good. Like, especially, they wanted to have a more complete picture,
especially when they're on the road and like the other team has last change, and like they can, that they can have their guys. They might be stuck with guys out there, but like you said, like with Kastelik and Beecher, they have the options. It's like, all right, you're going to take this face-off, that sort of thing,
right? Like I liked Jacob Loco a lot on the Bruins. Like, this guy, he has great speed. He draws penalties.
He likes Lord of the Rings.
He's got a bit of an offensive touch. Not crazy, but a little bit there.
He's got tattoos.
And then they traded him. And you're like, okay, I get it. Because you couldn't have three lefties, on your fourth line. Or you wanted to get a natural kind of, like, you want to get more of a complexion that you're like, I don't worry if that line is out there.
We don't want to have any more Jacobs.
That's right. No more Jacobs. They have had like a mass exodus of Jacobs the last couple of years. But sort of you look at it, and that's the thing. Like, they're a more complete team right now than they were a year ago. And so that's great. That's what you want. Which brings me to the question of their one biggest weakness is that second line right wing. Right now it's Morgan Geekie, it looks like. He had a great few minutes with Marchand and Coyle in that preseason game against the Flyers at the Garden. And then Marchand leaves because of an illness, and then that's the end of that. So, but I thought the time we did see together, they were very good. They were hounding pucks. They were on top of plays.
I think, the relentlessness of the forechecking, I think, is what stands out with that group together. It's just, you need production from that spot. You got to get goal scoring, which is why I'm disappointed that they send down Lascelles again. And like you talk about the domino effect, like Morgan Geekie probably fits well on the third line if he stays there. And then you can slide Max Jones down to the fourth line. And right now they have Cole Koepke, who they also signed in the offseason, on the fourth line. And I mean, Matthew Poitras's another one where it's like, it looks like he's like a healthy scratch. That's what he's projected to be. Like, why you have him up here? If you're not going to play him, put him in Providence, right? Is there like a concern about cap or waivers or something like that?
Is it with Lysell or Poitras?
Sorry, I moved on to Poitras, but like, Lysell is like a whole different.
No, I think they like Poitras. He got hurt, and I think they want him to work with their NHL group because when he is healthy, they're going to use him. I think that's what I would take away from that.
So they're just stashing him for a bit, until he's 100%.
Yeah, and but that's the worry though, is that hit that he took from Ristolainen, he's gonna get hit like that. It's gonna happen again.
Can you play a bottom six role? If you can't withstand the punishment.
And this is why I would put him in Providence to begin the year. It's not a knock on him. It's not a demotion. It's a get your legs back, get your feet under you. You haven't played in 9 months essentially. Go out there and get comfortable. Play every situation. Play top six. Just get your pacing down, your rhythm down. But I also think that I think he was very good in camp prior to the injury. I think he was making it hard for them to say, go to Providence, because I think in their heart of hearts, Matt, I think they want to put him in Providence. They realize that that'd be good for him.
Yeah, and I love his compete where he's like, I'm going to make it a hard decision.
Exactly. And if he's going to play that way, you can't punish him, and you can't say, no, you're going down to Providence. Like, so I understand it. Like, they just love his compete. They love his heart. This is a guy who, when he was drafted, told the Bruins, who's your comp? Oh, he said Anthony Cirelli from the Lightning. Anthony Cirelli. That guy competes. He's an absolute dog.
If he's Anthony Cirelli, I'll take that. I hope he's better, but like I would,
But he's not as big, right? He's got to know how to handle everything physically. He's a young kid. He did add some size. He did add some muscle. He's a smarter player than he was a year ago. He likes being grimy. He likes being greasy. He'll tell you that straight up. But can he handle that right now? That's the real question. I love a guy who's willing, but if you can't handle it and you're going to get hurt, well, then I'd rather you not get hurt because you're too important to the future of the team. And so that's where it's interesting for a guy like him. But I think that's why he's here still. Is they love him. They don't want to punish him because they love the way he competes. They love the way that he answers the bell. When we talk about Lysell and Merkelov and guys that didn't make it, they didn't answer the bell, but Poitras did. And so he's hurt right now, but they're like, you did everything we wanted you to do and more. Like, that's why we're not sending you down right now. So I think that's a factor as well.
So I think we got to wrap up pretty soon, Ty, but should we go to big picture stuff, maybe predictions, things like that?
For sure.
So I think now that Swayman's here and we have the defense intact, the question that we're just touching on is who's going to score? Where's the scoring going to come from? Where's the production going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like eventually they got to give Fabian Lysell a chance in the National Hockey League. I know that he's not perfect. He's not a finished product. He's not doing everything they need him to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I thought he showed enough in the preseason. He had one really great game anyway, where he scored and he felt like he was a threat every time he touched the puck. Like, aren't there going to be games where you're going to come out of it saying like they could have won that game? They lose 1-0 or 2-1, or it's like if he had just a little more pop offensively. And this is why they need Swayman. This is why they need the great goaltending and defenses, because like you're not going to be outscoring teams a lot, it seems, unless the Zacha Lindholm Pasternak line really pops off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lindholm's back to scoring 40 goals and Zacha's, reaching another level.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's their hope. But beyond that, like, I just feel like the scoring depth isn't there right now.
So here's my big complaint with Fabian. And I was a big Fabian guy leading up to camp. I was saying, you got to give him a spot. You got to let him try to make it. I don't think his contributions were as notable 5-on-5. I thought he was really good on the power play. But how often is he going to be playing on the power play in Boston? Out of the gate. Probably not that much. He'll be in the second unit. He'll get 30 seconds there. And if you're doing nothing else 5-on-5, it's a little bit harder to make an impact, right? And I think the other thing with Fabian that kind of bothered me a little bit, and I don't know how they felt about it, but I was like, oh, that's a tough quote to say and then do nothing. He comes up. They call him back up for that game in Quebec City. And they said, how did you feel about your camp? And he said, oh, I felt like I was getting better and better. I guess I'll have to show them, that I want to be up here. It was like passive aggressive, kind of like the language and like the attitude was it felt a little bit passive aggressive. And then that game against the Kings, he did nothing. He did literally nothing. It was a -2. I think he had one shot on goal. You're like, all right, way to show everybody. Like,
I get it, but like, are we just he's never going to play? Like,
no,
we're just going to be in the minors
his
his whole career after a first round pick?
No. My point though is that I think that he rides the wave of the emotions more than he needs to be an impact NHL player. He's going to have to get over that frustration. He's going to have to get over, whatever he sees as a roadblock and just keep grinding and keep playing.
So like, you think like the coaching points and things like that, he maybe takes it a little too personally?
I think there might be a bit of that.
Lets it affect him a little too much on the ice?
Okay, but he had a horrible game. He had a horrible game against the Rangers, the first game. And then Mougenel, the coach in Providence, got in touch with him before game 2 and said, hey, get back to your basics. You're a good hockey player. Then he had a great game. Then he gets sent down. He gets brought back up. Had a crappy game. It's like, you gotta flatline it a little bit. You can't just go high and then low and then high and then low. Like, you gotta be a
little more consistent.
Exactly,
they definitely want their guys to be consistent, not too high, not too low.
That is the biggest thing he's got to work on. So if he can do that, awesome. But he's also a guy that, to your point, I think you were kind of alluding to this. I don't think you want to call up and have him play 6 minutes. He's got to be in a scoring role. So he's got to get over that emotional consistency. He's got to get to that point, I think, to be a real factor. But if he begins the year in Providence, he has 20 points in 20 games, and this team is averaging 2.3 goals a game, bring him up. But until then, he's got to work that out on his own.
All right. No, I think that's fair. But like, yeah, he's been the development with him has been frustratingly slow, but I think some of that also falls on his shoulders, which I think is fair. All right, Ty, one more thing. Season prediction. Where do they finish the regular season? What happens in the playoffs?
They are the best team in the Atlantic. They win the division, and they lose in the third round.
Ooh, they get to the conference final this year. All right, all right.
That's my prediction.
Do they beat Florida? Do they have to play Florida? Do they play Florida in the conference final?
Florida is out in the first round because they've played an insane amount of hockey the last 2 years.
Cup hangover. They just lost Montour.
And I don't love their defense. I like it, but I don't love it. I think there's even more weight on guys like Gustav Forsling, whom I love, as you know. But I think this might be the year where they take a step back and then they come right back next year and they're a monster again.
I think that's fair to wonder. Yeah, the Panthers, it's like,
it's a lot of hockey.
Devastating playoff opponent, but like, no, you get to the cup final 2 years in a row, that's got to take a toll on you at some point.
Did you see the clip? I think it's from the Amazon series or maybe from their cup DVD. I don't know. Remember that clip of Maurice yelling at them in Game 5 in Florida?
Yeah.
He's mic'd up for it. Did you hear what he said?
No.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Maurice.
He's like, you go up 3-1 and you're trying to make plays. He's like, hit them. So they got nothing in the tank in Game 7. I was like, oh, that is a coach right there. He's not even thinking about winning that game. He's not thinking about winning Game 6. He's like, play the long game, hit them. So they have nothing left in Game 7. Love that guy. I mean, I don't love him, but like that's a great coach.
When do you love him?
No, I got a.
It's a little insufferable.
I got a respect for him. In not that he needs my respect in any way, and he's not losing.
No, I'll let him know he's there.
Yeah, no, but I thought that Game 7, you got to see the person, but behind the coach, family guy, like he's a guy that I was like, you know what, I get it. I was like, the light when I was like, I get it. I get why his players love him. I get why. He has the command that he does. I get it now, so to speak.
All right, fair enough. But yeah, no, I think my gut tells me Toronto wins the Atlantic this year, but they fizzle out again in the playoffs. But that doesn't mean they're going to play the Bruins again. Mm-hmm. Maybe they play the Bruins in the second round this year.
I think they
lose to the Bruins again.
I think they knock out Florida.
That's a good. Okay, I like this. Toronto wins the Atlantic. They beat Florida in the first round, lose to the Bruins again in the second round.
So I have the Bruins.
The Bruins exercised the Tampa Bay demon in the first round this year.
Something like that. I have the Bruins winning their division. I have Florida. I'm sorry. I have Toronto and Florida. I don't know what standing wise. I have them in the other Atlantic bracket. Toronto wins. Boston, Toronto again. Boston eliminates Toronto round 2 this time, and then they lose to I'd say the Rangers. That's what I'm going to.
I was going to say Rangers, Carolina, something like that.
Rangers or Devils. I like the Devils a lot this year. That's a good,
they got
good defense.
Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom in goal now.
They're gonna get Luke Hughes and the other kid Simon
Nemec.
Yes, Nemec. Yeah, they're gonna get him back too. Yes,
anemia.
So I like them a lot this year.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be an interesting season, Ty. But thank you for taking the time to come in here.
Absolutely.
We'll see if you're going to get on your single-edged Cessna and fly into the eye of Hurricane Milton. I need you to give us updates.
I feel like Jurassic Park. We gotta go. We gotta go. I'm gonna get eaten by a dinosaur.
You're tying the seatbelt.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. If you joined us on the live stream, if you made it this far, thanks. I love you. Many thanks to our faithful listeners of the Sports Hub Underground. If you're listening to this in podcast form, just know that we did do this live on Twitter. We're going to try to keep doing this. I think we're going to try to get this up on YouTube. We're going to keep trying. This is basically the trial run, but I think it was a success overall. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll talk to you again soon.